Yeah. Say what? Yo. Check it out, man. Anime Hanashi is what you're watching. The podcast that you won't be dropping. That's listed everywhere, causing drama. From the city of Compton to Akihabara. Talking about anime, it ain't no stress. The podcast is sure to impress. With me, Lewis, and the rest of the crew. Sit back, relax, and we'll show you how we do. Oh, yeah.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Anime Hanashi. This is the 6th episode, so I just want to thank everybody for the support up till now. But anyway, enjoy this episode. It was a really fun one. I think we talked about some interesting topics. So yeah, enjoy. So in this episode of the podcast, I'm here with Michael from Goat Jesus and Kenji from Kenji the Enji. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Tired.
On our second attempt to start the podcast. I guess we'll just hop into our first topic, because I think all my viewers will know you guys, because Kenji's already been on an episode, and I'm pretty sure you guys are all subscribed to Michael already.
I'm YouTube famous.
He's a YouTube celebrity. An anime community.
Everyone knows about me. I'm right up there with PewDiePie.
I know, Michael, you want to talk about Psycho-Pass. I think that would be pretty interesting to talk about.
Well, yeah, I've been rewatching Psycho-Pass. I hardly remembered anything from it, and I figured it would be a good opportunity to sort of watch it with friends and give it another chance, especially since Digibro's been breathing down my neck about it.
When did you originally watch it?
Yeah, back when it was airing. Like...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't really care for airing shows that much, so...
Yeah. Well, I think it aired in like 2012, so...
I dropped it for a while and then picked it back up, and then it was like... I think I skipped a couple episodes in the process. And, yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a flawed experience, so I decided to give it another chance, but I can't say that I'm particularly enthralled by giving it another chance. Okay, like, I just have so many problems with the way that it constructs its world. I don't find verisimilitude to be believable whatsoever, in the sense that I feel like the ultra-violence of this system... The civil system is ridiculous. It's ludicrous. I feel like having public executions and then somehow the characters being able to totally disconnect themselves from these public executions, that their psychopaths doesn't actually rise, is just beyond my comprehension. I don't see how exploding into blood and guts is the most practical thing for a quote-unquote civilized society to do. I don't think that there's enough surveillance for being like a sort of surveillance-based community. I was kind of a little bit taken aback by the school episodes with that girl who makes art. That was
really weird.
By the way.
That was so out of place.
And there's like, okay, so there's like no psychopath monitoring whatsoever in that school. I am baffled by that, considering that it's everywhere else. And then and she's got like 500 on the psychopath meter. She's like beyond a serial killer. So instant detection otherwise. On top of that, you know, apparently there are cameras all around the school, and I guess we have to assume that Makishima was erasing all the information involved, but that doesn't necessarily... Actually, that isn't true, because Makishima... erased the information after Kogami was in possession of the footage. But yeah, they had camera footage of basically her dragging the bodies around, which I thought was just really contrived, how nobody figured this out by looking at any of the footage from when the time the people disappeared at it, especially before. It's ridiculous. There's just so many little things about this show that bother the crap out of me. And it's...
Yeah, same. I think, like, there was a lot of little, you know, silly things that happened with the story and the world, but I think, like, another thing about the world is just the general, like, atmosphere and setup and kind of world building was, like, completely off as well. I think they focused on the wrong things, and for an anime that's meant to be about society, they don't ever really address the effects of, you know, the whole world on the society. Like, they only ever really focus on like one or two characters at a time, or a group of characters. They never really focus on like a society-wide scale, because it's just, and that's what they should have done, because then that doesn't really give you any kind of interaction with the world. You never really see how much this thing's actually affected society, and how it's affected life, how it's affected, you know, the evolution of society and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, even something like Evangelion kind of goes into the repercussions of what the world is going through, with just people speaking in the background about what's been happening to like their families and what's going on with that sort of stuff, and that's really just devoid in Psycho-Pass so far. Instead, we're following Akane, who I personally think is really drab, dull, incompetent for someone who's been trained. I cannot understand.
She's my biggest problem with the show.
I cannot understand how stupid she is for someone who's been like.
I know. Yeah, like she's basically the premise is she's meant to be super intelligent, so she can get any job she wants, but she is like literally like the dumbest person. Like she basically spends the series just making really stupid mistakes and doing really dumb things, which is like, but she's meant to be a genius. Like
it doesn't make sense.
I understand geniuses, like really smart people might not have great social skills, but like they must have common sense. I mean, she just lacks common sense. It was quite weird. She's definitely my least favorite thing about the show. I thought she was a really bland character, a really dull character, and I thought she really brung nothing to the show, and even brought the show down at points.
It confuses me why Digibro constantly hails her as being the strongest point of the series, one of the strongest points. I do not understand that, so I will have to keep watching and see if I can figure out some sort of dimension to her character that is just absent so far.
I think the main like argument I've heard for her character was that she's kind of like meant to be learning along with the viewer. Which,
that doesn't. I don't buy that. I
No.
don't buy that, because she's a skilled, trained professional, or should be anyway. And then she's freaking out.
Well, she took the exam.
She's freaking out about this the paralyzing of people, which I think is really odd and really incompetent, just straight off the bat in episode 1. I don't know.
I get she's a rookie, but they overdo it a little bit.
If she's a rookie, shouldn't she be like? I think like real life police procedurals will have people sort of follow around, but not really. They're commanded not to interfere with that sort of stuff, so that they can sort of learn the ropes by observing. And shouldn't she be in that situation instead of being directly involved?
Well, I think the point of the system was that they have this like test so that they can skip kind of training and stuff like that, but then surely if she was smart enough to pass the test to be put in a position like that, she should already have the skills and requirements needed to perform a job like that, but she doesn't. She might as well have been anybody off the streets who just started police training. That
seems really strange for this world that like is supposed to be, again, this futuristic, hyper-intelligent society.
Yeah.
And that seems like such a logical misfire. Yeah, I mean, Makishima is another. I like the concept of his character quite a lot, which is that you have this villain who's up against this almost tyrannical dystopia kind of system. It's not. I mean, the weird thing about Psycho-Pass is that they don't really portray it quite as dystopian as I think that they should. It's really weird.
I think visually they do, but thematically it might as well just be another sci-fi city, really.
It just feels.
I think
like
that's what tricks a lot of people.
It's strange. Yeah. I mean, I find it to be like the inherent like thought crime aspect of it is sort of something that, I mean, they reference it all over the place with Makishima reading 1984, but it doesn't really, not so far anyway, go into detail about what that means for everybody.
I really found the literary allusions to be a little bit annoying and overdone.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It was like Ghost in the Shell 2 all over again.
That's what it felt like.
Exactly.
That's what it felt
Just
like.
it was like, here's a list of books that I've read about themes. You can go read them yourself, and we're not going to delve into them.
Said. It's like...
Yeah. I think Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence actually done it better as well, because I mean,
at least it had jam
as pretentious
and
as the dialogue was, at least there was dialogue.
Exactly.
That's true.
Like Psycho-Pass literally at points just names off books and doesn't delve into them at all. Like this, some of the points in that were almost like, I was like, why are we just listing books here? What is this?
What's Makishima like? He's playing Ode to Joy in the background all the time too. You'd think there's like almost no thought that goes into the composition of his character and why he does the things that he does. It really seems pseudo-intellectual the way that Makishima is as a character. I don't understand the motivation.
It's like they came up with an interesting character and then like were too excited and just rushed him like, oh yes, let's get this interesting idea out and quickly and do
Cool
it.
stuff.
And
Throw
they
it
didn't
in.
really do it properly.
Yeah, overall, like, they have a lot of really cool ideas, but they never, like, flesh them out as much as they should, like, in almost every aspect, the world, the characters, etc. Even, like, with the literary allusions, which we mentioned before, like, it's really, really broad, it's not specific, it never delves very deep into it. Like, and it's not something particularly super hard to do. I've seen, like, a lot of things handle literary allusions much better. Like, even something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6, it, like, references certain books, and then the themes of the show, like, the themes of the manga, rather, tie into the book. And it's, like, in Psycho Pass, it never even, like, specifies what about the book parallels to the story. It could be handled a lot better than it was, in my opinion.
Definitely. So what about some positives of the show? Because I mean, to be fair, like it gets a lot of negative stick from critics and stuff because it's so highly regarded. It's kind of like the whole Attack on Titan thing and Sword Art Online thing. It's like since people like hype it up so much and rate it so highly, when you watch it and you want to talk about it, you just focus on the negative and stuff. But to be fair to Psycho Pass, there are a few positives that I think it does really well. Like I think visually, from an animation standpoint and from a design standpoint even as well, I think some of the episodes are really well done.
Well, I really like the
personally think
rainbow effects that they have going on all over the place. It reminds me a lot of Ghost in the Shell 2 again. But generally, there's like, I don't know. I feel like some of the character designs are good, and then some of them stand out as being really odd. Akane is a perfect example of that. She looks like she has some facial deformity with the way that her eyes are, in contrast to the other characters.
Yeah. She's like semi-moe. She's like a kind of weird mix of like normal and moe characters.
But she always looks like droopy, if that's the best way to put it. And it's again just the facial structure and the design. And they'll often portray her chin in like this lopsided way, so it looks like it's just like flying off to the left. You'll notice it if you pay attention.
Yeah,
but,
and all of the male characters are like pretty boys to appeal to like a female demographic visually.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
to me,
the two main guys were definitely designed to kind of
dude,
sell
Kogame,
fan fiction or whatever.
Like watching it, dude, Kogame is great fan service. Love him. So, but
yeah, I mean, I bet there's loads of body pills and stuff and merchandise sold with him. Definitely.
Well, he's a much better character, I feel, than Akane, because at least he has, like, I have something to go off. He has a backstory that I feel is already intrinsically interesting in comparison to her. He's got a friend who has been murdered and wants to avenge that. That's something that I can go off of. That's something that's kind of a little bit cliche for cop dramas, I think, which Psycho Pass, weirdly, thinking about it, absolutely is a cop drama. That's at least...
I mean, that's literally that's the plot point of the Cowboy Bebop episode that not really parodies, but kind of takes on those kind of classic cop dramas, those kind of American cop dramas, and that's literally the plot, and they're trying to be as generic as possible, and they use that exact plot point that an old friend of mine's died.
It makes him more interesting anyway than Akane, because she has nothing. So
that's true.
I think he's also more believable for the role. I think I could see him in that situation. I couldn't see Akane in that situation.
Yeah, which I don't know anything about season 2 really. I watched a couple of the first episodes, and then it was just like.
I didn't go into it and I was going to, but I heard really bad things about it. Even from Psycho Pass fans were saying it was bad. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I mean,
I think it was a different staff list and everything, so it wasn't necessarily a kind of continuation. It was more here's a little bit more of some stuff from Psycho Pass.
I hear they go in a crazy direction. They do some really crazy and nonsensical things.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because I mean the main series was teetering on the edge of being really bad at points, so I can imagine with some kind of maybe some different writers or something, I can see it going off the rails a little bit.
So far though, I think that Psycho Pass is head and shoulders above All Noah Zero. And it's personally, this might be controversial, but I personally am enjoying it more than enjoying watching Fate Zero, and that's something that a lot of people would disagree with me on. I don't think Psycho Pass
I'd agree.
is very good,
I'd say
it's more enjoyable.
Probably my I'd say it's probably maybe one of my favorite Urobuchi things. Like, I'm not a Urobuchi fan, but I think that and Madoka Magica are probably the most enjoyable.
Yeah, exactly. I
don't
agree
like
with
Fate
you.
Zero.
I like the second season of Fate more than the first. Like, if we're talking just enjoyment.
I feel like the second season of Fate Zero, right, is a lot of characters being rushed off to die. And that's what it is. It's like every episode is a character being rushed off to die, and then Kiritsugu doing something incredibly moronic. And I mean, okay, for example, in his backstory with the plane and stuff like that, I have no idea why she couldn't land the plane on the water, get out through the front window, swim to him, they blow up the airplane. It would have worked. I mean, I'm just like, this is something that's not even... I mean, I remember hearing this on the news before, that planes like that can actually land on water. So that's a nitpick, though. Whatever.
Yeah.
He's being stupid. Whatever.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that it's the structure of the second half is mainly what I dislike about the second half of the show. Fate Zero Season 1 was at least, it was trying to be like character sort of banter and development, and it was trying to do that, and then the second season was kill everyone as fast as possible.
My problems with Fate in general, as well as Kara no Kyokai, is that, like, very few things happen, and, like, the fights are broken up with a lot of dialogue. And in the second season of Fate, that's where, like, things actually started happening, which is why I liked it more. I'm not, like, a big fan of Fate, to be honest, but I mean, if I were to compare that to Psycho Pass, I got more enjoyment out of it. Because at least, like, with Fate, there's, like, some decent to good characters. Like, Ryder is a genuinely solid character.
Waver and Ryder were a great duo. Actually,
Yeah.
I think that they're the highlight of the entire series of Fate.
I
like,
agree.
in general, the franchise. But that's like...
I'd agree straight up. I mean, like, even, like, some of the other characters which aren't as amazing, like, have some sort of personality, have some sort of backstory. Sure, like, okay, not Assassin, but some of them do. It's not, like, the best show ever.
Tokiomi, I mean, come on. Archibald, come on. Those are terrible characters. That's like... I mean, Tokiomi was pretty much... He had almost nothing going on with him except for Tosaka family line. Must breed, like, new sorcerers and sorceresses. It's, really kind of weak. And Archibald was pretty much just a flat two-dimensional villain, mustache twirler, who then gets his wife to torture him and stuff, and try to win Lancer over because she thinks he's hot. It's really...
Can we just, like, agree that Urobuchi's not that good? Because I don't think he is.
No,
But-
I don't.
No,
I'm
I
shocked.
don't think he's done much good at all.
I actually need to stop, and probably I would love to make a video on this, but maybe like try to discern why people like him so much in his writing style. Because there has to be this reason for a lot of people loving.
I think he's basically built his career off of being hired to make popular things. Like Ufotable hired him for Fate Zero, Shaft hired him to make Madoka Magica. He's basically a guy you bring in to say, okay, come here, make this, basically make a mainstream anime that will sell lots, and that's basically what he does. I mean, I don't think Psycho Pass was that popular, but I mean, Madoka Magica was insanely popular, and Fate Zero was really popular as well. So I mean, he knows what he's doing in that he knows how to make a popular anime, but he doesn't know what he's doing in that in any sort of writing sense or narrative sense or character sense, anything like that. He's clueless.
Actually, he only wrote the light novels for Fate Zero, which were then directly adapted into the anime adaptation. But that's a little technicality that maybe some people would want to point out in that regard.
Well, yeah, people use that excuse as well with Alno Zero.
I'm honestly like super weirded out by Urobuchi's fascination with strangulation of women and like rape in general. It's so weird that he loves to incorporate these. But actually, fun fact, in the original Fate Zero light novels, he was going to have, I think his name is it the white-haired guy, Karya? Am I
think that's
completely
it.
wrong on that? Okay,
I could be wrong.
he was gonna have him rape Sakura,
Oh,
and
wow.
then Nasu came on and was just like, "Bro, don't do that."
Well, there was that strangling scene in Al No Zero as well, and like people always use the excuse for Urobuchi that he was only involved, he only wrote the first 3 episodes or whatever.
Awful 3 episodes.
That doesn't matter. Like what he was credited as, it's the fact that he was involved with the project. It's like
he was the creator and composer. That is really involved. He might not have physically written the scripts, but there's a difference between physically writing the scripts and like a person who oversees the entire project. He was pretty much like a sub-director for how the story was supposed to go, along with another person.
It's like when Yoshitoshi Abe's involved in a project. Although he might only be credited as character designer, you know for a fact that he didn't just come in, design some characters and leave. He had a massive hand in creating the series, because like I think people give too much credit to the credits. They say, okay, because people don't just come in, do their one job and leave. People don't just come in, write 3 episodes and then leave. Urobuchi had a bigger hand in a lot of the series than people.
Those first 3 episodes of All No were terrible. They were horrible.
Yep.
Episode 1 ended on.
Yep, especially that action scene, which was the big climax. That was like one of the worst action scenes.
All I can describe it reminds me of Star Wars Episode 1. Phantom Menace, with the way that they have these droids like pew-pewing at each other. That's kind of how it felt with the entire robot.
They were just like freaking standing there,
exactly.
They're just like standing there being slaughtered.
And then what's his face, brownie-haired guy who isn't slain? He was just like, my friend. No, I don't care. It was just so funny at the time.
Yeah. That's definitely his weakest involvement in a show, or a show that he's had involvement or whatever.
But,
I think out of all the ones we've mentioned,
like,
all the ones
like
I've
he
seen.
Doesn't. He blows up. Okay, so Urobuchi at the end of episode 1 for the finale of All No Zero blows up an entire city that nobody gives a shit about because nobody fucking knows anything about it. So there is absolutely no impact to the whatever the fuck it is. Is it? Explode.
Yeah, but he makes that mistake so much, and I'll clear from spoilers for Madoka Magica, but Madoka Magica episode 3, I'll say no more. Like that event that happened there, I think everyone that's watched it will know what I'm talking about, was so unimpactful because it happened in episode 3, where you're meant to still be getting used to everything and like getting to know things. If it happened in episode, say, 7 or 8, sure, it would have been impactful, but you can't make dramatic events happen before you build up any reason for them to be dramatic. He makes that mistake so many times.
Well, people buy into it.
He never establishes like a sense of normalcy between the characters and like the world before he decides to completely fuck it up, and I think that's the biggest problem, I'd say.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. I think it's for that sort of like shock value kind of gripping the audience is what he's trying to do, because it is unexpected, right? There is no build up, and then you're kind of like, well, this was shocking, or at least that's the effect that he's going for. But I personally feel he fails.
Yeah, I mean, people mix up being surprised with being emotionally impacted by it. Like, sure, I can just shoot a character in the head and it'll be like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen. Doesn't mean it was good writing. It's like jump scares. It's like that doesn't necessarily mean it's good writing.
Without spoiling too much, end of Phantom Reckon with a Phantom. That was Urobuchi, and it has his fingerprints all over it with just how unexpected the ending is and how silly, and it was basically trying to go for exactly that and then completely fell on its head, in my opinion. I know that a lot of people love that ending. I don't know why, but...
Have either of you guys played Saya no Uta, which is a visual novel?
Saya no Uta. It is my least favorite piece of fiction I have ever read. I fucking despise Saya no Uta. Everything else he's done. Urobuchi, passable. Okay, Saya no Uta, no. Absolutely not. This piece of fucking shit. I was reading it with Glenn Love Subway. Oh my god.
Yeah, I remember you guys tweeting about it. I've not seen it, but I know so much about it because you guys were tweeting about how bad it was.
The only reason I brought it up is because one of my friends said it was good, so I was like, maybe I'll mention it. Maybe but apparently it's not good. So
it's awful. I would absolutely not recommend reading Saya no Uta. It is constructed off of every trope that you despise. Everything that you could possibly dislike about Urobuchi is just all in one place, with 10-year-old girls being raped. So, wonderful. It totally... I from what I understand, Saya no Uta is only appreciated in the West from people like Kotaku and journalists like that who think that it's actually like well written. In Japan, it relatively is more used to read this as a dare kind of thing because of how bad it is. So,
yeah, the kind of Boku no Pico of
exactly.
visual novels.
And I am astounded whenever I hear someone say that they felt for the characters because they are the worst people in fiction. There's absolutely no sympathy that can be had for these characters. They are awful people, and then when the soppy music comes up, oh my god, it is so awful. It's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be spoiling anything or not, but Jesus.
Yeah, I think you should spoil it by saying nobody should
Play it. That's it. Well, you can read it just to... I can't believe Extra Credits recommended it. I can't believe that. Oh my god. I'm like...
Normally when, like, I'll let people off if they're not that into anime and they say, oh, Sword Art Online's cool, and they're like, that's the only anime they've watched. They're like, okay, you haven't watched much anime. For a newbie, it's cool. But when I see people that are, like, respectable critics and stuff like that, it's like...
Well,
How can you even if it's animated and it's from Japan, you still must be able to notice the flaws.
Well, for whatever reason, okay, so the main character has meat vision already super contrived because he gets this eye surgery and suddenly he sees everything that is ugly as beautiful and everything that is beautiful as ugly. It's really convoluted. And then he essentially doesn't want to seek medical attention because he thinks that he'll become a science experiment, and so he just suffers through all this stuff. And for whatever reason, this has auditory hallucinations on top of everything. It's not a functional sort of world and all that sort of jazz. And so yeah, he doesn't want to seek medical attention. And I feel like the story, Extra Credits compared it to something like Silent Hill, but Silent Hill is constructed off of really allegorical and symbolic imagery, and Sayano Uta is constructed off of meat vision. So I didn't find any symbolism within Sayano Uta that I thought was significant whatsoever. I'm sure someone would be able to pull something out of their ass, like when the main character falls down a well, or not the main character, the main character's friend falls down a well, and then there's a secret passage underneath, conveniently. I'm sure it's symbolic.
Yeah, that's the one thing about Gen Urobuchi stuff, is that people like him so much that they'll have an excuse for every single thing we've talked about.
Like they really overanalyze it. I'd say.
Yeah.
Like take things that aren't there, or like aren't meant to have some kind of meaning, and give them a meaning.
Well, Fate Zero, like with the utilitarian, or I'm trying to remember if that's the right term. Utilitarianism is, if I'm butchering that, it's because I'm tired.
I think that is the right one.
But it's really simplistic in terms of how it deals with it. It's not even like this in-depth sort of critique of that stuff. It's more of just like Kiritsugu is a guy who ends justifies the means. That's his character in a nutshell. And I don't really feel like there is absolutely this enormous amount of there's this thematic thread that cascades throughout all of his work, and he's doing this elaborate critique of this like entire philosophy, which is a blog post that I've been reading as well. And same thing with Madoka Rebellion, with Homura is the Ubermensch. No, absolutely not. It's ridiculous how some people will interpret this stuff.
I've read a bunch of those articles, and it's almost irritating when you read kind of things like that, and
yeah,
it does kind of boil your blood.
Well, it certainly makes watching his stuff less enjoyable, because you just want to look at it from this viewpoint of, yeah, so what if it's flawed? I mean, I can get something out of it, but then other people will say, oh, it's this and this and this, and I don't think that there's sufficient evidence to supply what the claims are, and that's why it's kind of frustrating dealing with a lot of the fans especially.
We're going to go into our first game for the podcast. For so those who haven't watched it, this podcast is also a kind of little game show in that people score points throughout the podcast through various games, and at the end we have a winner. So Kenji won his first episode against Matt.
Yep.
Who I think Matt just automatically loses. I think he's lost 3 times in the podcast. But yeah, so we're going to go into our first game here. It's one we haven't played before. I'll give you guys 2 shows, and you guys have to guess which one is more popular according to Mal. Like how many people have watched it according to Mal. So
Okay.
I'm going to give you guys two like similar shows in popularity, and you guys have to guess it. I'll give you guys each a guess. So the first one, which is worth a point, is Sword Art Online and Attack on Titan. Which one has been
Sword Art Online
watched
is more popular
according to Mal?
Attack on Titan.
It's Attack on Titan by like 10,000 people.
Okay.
It's like there's like 550,000 people and then 560,000 people. It was really I was surprised how close it is. But I mean like astronomically more watched than like most other series on Mal pretty much.
I think Death Note
So
is
it's,
number
point to Kenji.
one. Actually, I would think that.
Yeah, I think so. The next one, which is an interesting one, the original Ghost in the Shell movie or Standalone Complex season 1. Which one has been watched more?
I'll say the original.
The original?
I'll say.
Because this is an interesting one. Because
I'm just gonna go contrarian, so I'm gonna say Standalone Complex.
yeah, because I mean you'd think that like people would start with the movie, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people do watch the thing, but surprisingly to me, it was actually the original movie.
I'm not surprised by that particularly. I mean, even people like there was a famous director directed Terminator. What the fuck is his name? James Cameron. James Cameron endorsed Ghost in the Shell,
Yeah,
so there's a lot of popular.
Yeah.
Sort of,
So does the Matrix guys, the Wachowskis or whatever.
Wachowskis.
So the next one, this is quite a hard one. I'll be surprised if you guys it's got a lot of options. So basically, any Misaki Yuasa work. What is his most popular work?
Ooh, I'd say Ping Pong the Animation.
I'll go with Tatami Galaxy.
It's the Tatami Galaxy actually, which I was really surprised about. I was really surprised about that because I was thinking it must be Ping Pong because it got a lot of momentum when it was airing. So I thought surely a lot of people have watched that, but apparently it was the Tatami Galaxy and by quite a lot as well.
Tatami.
So that must just be purely
it
recommendations.
has to be
and stuff.
recommendations.
Yeah.
People like Demolition doing stuff and all that jazz.
Yeah, it would be interesting to like know like how many like people that have watched it because of like a video like that or something like that. That'd be pretty interesting. I think I'm gonna pick the next topic. I'm gonna do something a little bit more positive for a contrary to our big discussion about Gen Urobuchi. I've been watching a show with that I somehow missed. I've no idea how, but I missed it when it aired. It aired last year in 2014. I'm not sure what season, but I think it was summer or something. But it was a point where I was watching everything, and I just somehow missed this completely. And it's Nobunaga Concerto, which it's a really interesting
Never heard
show.
of it.
Yeah, I know exactly. It's like I've not finished it yet, but I can quite confidently say it's one of the better shows of 2014. And
wow.
Yeah, I know.
Nice.
And I normally watch everything each season, but this one slipped through, and it seems like it did for a lot of people. But basically, it's got a really funny premise. Basically, it opens up and it's just in a normal high school, and you're thinking, oh great, another high school kind of comedy show, and then about a minute in, like this kind of plot twist where the guy falls back to kind of the Edo period Japan, and basically like time travels back there, and basically he has to live as Nobunaga, who's this kind of like samurai warrior guy. And it's funny because the comedy comes from him doing all these kind of like crazy like war general stuff, but he's doing it with like porn magazines and like things that he's brought from like from like the modern times and stuff like that, and he's like he wears women's clothes and stuff like that because he doesn't like the Japanese kimonos and stuff like that. So it's such a weird premise, but it works so well, and it's also rotoscoped as well. They done like the whole thing.
Rotoscoping?
Yeah, but
Completely?
and it looks really good.
Cool.
And
That's
it's like,
nice.
and it's not like, it's like rotoscoped and then maybe done over again. So it kind of like it's like a mix. It's like an in between. Because it doesn't look quite like Akonohana or anything like that. It doesn't quite look as jarring, but it doesn't look like normal 2D animation. Like there's a lot of really fluid movement and stuff like that. It's probably my favourite rotoscoped anime that I've watched. Certainly,
Better than Akunohana?
yeah, I think I like the rotoscoping in this more, because I think it really works with the kind of comedic atmosphere of the show. Yeah, I take it none of you guys have watched it then.
No, I heard about it back when it was airing, and when the first episode came out, I saw a lot of people like saying it was garbage. And then later on, I looked to see what people were saying about it, and everyone was calling it like a hidden gem.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
Well, I completely missed it when it was airing, and I didn't even add it to my list or anything. Like, it completely brushed me past, and it wasn't until recently when I was just getting some recommendations, and someone recommended it, and I was like, oh yeah, and I'll check it out. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting much, because the premise, like as I've explained, doesn't necessarily suggest that it's going to be great, because that kind of like parodying of like Japanese history and stuff like that has been done quite a lot. And you know, comedy anime is always very risky to go into, but this one works really well, and I think I'll have to give my full opinions once I finish the series, but I think right now it's one of my favorites of the year, so I definitely recommend it for people that like are looking for something, you know, some kind of quirky comedy. I think it's genuinely well written comedy, which is kind of hard to find these days. We'll just do a little discussion about comedy anime, because I want to talk about the comedy in Biyori, because I know, Kenji, you've watched it and you're quite a fan of it, and I think Biyori is really underappreciated in that the comedy and the comedic timing is so well written in Biyori, and it only gets appreciation as a kind of slice of life. Kind of, it looks nice, it has enjoyable characters, it's the kind of moe thing, but I think it's really underappreciated in that the comedic timing of some of the scenes are just really good, and so like some of the comedy in it's fantastic, and even some of the serious drama is really good as well. I don't think it's as good as it could have been, but I still think that's a strong point of the series.
I agree. I think like it takes small, really mundane things and like exaggerates them really well, through timing, as you said before. Like in one of the episodes where they were playing games with like erasers and rulers, and they made a giant thing out of it. I found that really funny and really entertaining as well. And it also handles drama really well, and has a lot of really ambient moments because of the backgrounds, which are really well drawn, and like the music and the way it connects to the countryside setting, which is very calm, peaceful, but a little bit quirky as well. I think it's a really genuinely done work. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's just something you can sit back and relax to. There isn't too much substance, but as a pleasant slice of life, I think it's top of the line, one of the best.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to offer. I think just unfortunately it's overshadowed by it kind of gets grouped with your kind of normal like kind of Kyoani moe shows, because it does have that kind of moe exterior. The characters are very moe in their character designs, like they all have kind of coloured hair and big eyes and stuff like that, but I think it's definitely more than that. I think, Michael, you were saying you were going to give it a watch soon, I think.
Yeah, I'll definitely actually give it a go and see what I think of it. I haven't like checked out the first season, so yeah, definitely.
It's good to watch when it's airing as well. It's a nice thing to watch like once a week.
So if I can catch up, then that would be for the best.
Yeah. It's basically like, it's an interesting how they've done season 2, because it's like season 1 was what, like 12 episodes or whatever, and then season 2, instead of continuing it, they're kind of like redoing it almost. Like it's a really interesting concept. I've never actually seen it done before, I don't think. They're basically going back and revisiting the first season, but it's showing you things that they didn't show you the first time.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and it's rather unique, and like it flows with like the pleasantness and the happiness of Biyori, because a lot of it is just like taking mundane things and making a lot of fun out of them, and appreciating and enjoying life, which is like a common motif for slice of life works. You see it in stuff like Aria, and stuff like YKK, Yokohama, Kadashi Kiko.
Yeah.
It's really common, but it's particularly well done in this one.
Yeah. I personally don't think it's as good as the other, like Arias and YKK and stuff like that. I don't think it's quite on that level, or even like things like Mushishi and stuff. I don't think it does slice of life as good as that, but I do think it's a serious contender for, you know, one of the better slice of life shows, especially as of recent.
Well, how do you feel it stacks up against something like Natsume Yojincho?
I think it's definitely equal to that.
Okay.
Of course, it lacks plot points in that. Even for a slice of life, it's very, very uneventful. Like even for like a, you know, even Aria and stuff like that, there's at least kind of a plot point going on. In Biyori, it's literally just a slice of life of it's an uneventful showing of an uneventful life. Like literally, they live in the countryside where there's like 5 people that live there. They never really do anything. I mean, they never really leave the countryside, and I don't think that's a hindrance to the series, but I think it definitely gives it a different kind of atmosphere. But I think I'd compare it to Natsume Yuchijo. I'd say it's better.
Yeah, I only saw the first season of Natsume, but I like Nan Biyori more as well. I think like as Lewis said just now, like it's really mundane and like not much happens, but like the whole series and completely everything that it does plays off that, and it plays off it really well, and the whole thing resonates really strongly.
So, Michael, what do you think about slice of life in general?
Slice of life?
Because I know you haven't watched Aria, have you?
No, I haven't watched Aria. In fact,
you haven't crossed to the other side yet of watching Aria. You haven't joined us yet.
I will though. It really just depends on like, I really have to be inspired to watch a show, and so there's like, I have a lot of things on my list to watch, but I really need to feel in the mood for it, and it's like I'm expecting something along the lines of Mushishi in terms of the bathtub feel, if that makes sense. Because watching shows like that feels like you're bathing. It's just like something really relaxing, maybe sometimes distressful. You never know what's hiding underneath the bubbles, but at the same time, overall very pleasant to watch. And Aria is gorgeous from everything that I've seen. Like I saw a lot of footage in your various videos, top 10 greatest anime of all time, super objective, 100%. And
it's very high on my top 10, and I really do believe that. I think it's like slice of life, like as you mentioned, Natsume Yuchijo and stuff. There's a lot of really like okay slice of life, like ones that are like enjoyable to watch. They have some interesting characters, but that's all they do. And then you get some special ones that come along, like Aria, like YKK, and like Mushishi, and that really do have some real depth to them, like real serious depth. And I just think that a lot of people miss that in the slice of life genre. I think if people watch the right ones.
I agree. I think like one of the best things that slice of life as a genre can do is portray like the flow of time over a long period of time. And I think like Aria and YKK in particular do that the best, because like in Aria it starts out really slow, and once you start hitting the end of origination, I don't really want to spoil anything, but time begins to flow much faster, and you're like, oh shit, it's almost over. And that whole experience you enjoyed ends. And similarly with YKK, the latter half of YKK, you see like time move by like much faster than in the first half after an event in the middle that I also don't want to spoil. But it's really interesting, and I think it's something very unique to that particular genre. And when it's done well, it's beautiful, in my opinion.
I always try and champion Aria in my videos and stuff, like even more so than other stuff, because I think it's something that you kind of need to be forced to watch, because by just looking at it, like you can never really grasp, even after watching the first season or even watching through the second season, you can never really grasp like what the anime truly is until you've completed it. Basically, that's really the only time where you look back and you see how great it is. So I always try and promote it in my videos as much as possible.
I think I've been like hyped about it since 2012. With Holden reviews, he would go on about how amazing it was. So that was I mean, yeah, it's definitely like I'll just probably just fucking watch it. Like maybe today.
Just go for it, man. Go for it.
Just watch it.
I think the good thing about it is that you can just like watch like one episode like a week if you wanted. You can watch it at any pace you want, really, because it'll take you. It's like you can take your time with it. That's the good thing about it. So even if you're watching a series already, you can just watch Aria on the side. I always recommend that.
I feel like it's very similar. I could be wrong about this, but the feeling of the show reminds me a little bit of Haibane Renmei, and it also reminds me a little bit of Kino's Journey, but I don't know if it's anything like those shows. I've liked those shows a lot, so.
I think Haibane Renmei's a good example of the kind of atmosphere and the kind of feeling that you get. The kind of feeling of like mystery and then at the same time attachment.
That is true. I think Kino as well. There was one episode in particular in Aria Season 2, the one with the cherry blossom tree. You know the one I'm talking about, Lewis, right? That one reminded me a lot of Kino, because it was less about the destination and more about the journey. And I think that's what Aria is as a whole. And when you finally get to your destination, you look back and just like awe and how beautiful and spectacular the whole thing was.
Yeah, I always forget to mention Kino's Journey when I talk about Slice of Life, because I haven't watched it in so long. I think it's been like 2 years since I've watched it, but that's definitely one of the better Slice of Life as well. And I bet if I went back and rewatched it, it'd be even higher on my list.
Yeah, I mean, Kino's Journey is fantastic because essentially each episode is an intelligently written, like, sort of philosophical exploration on to some degree. Sometimes it's more political, sometimes it's more just general life philosophy, and I really like that about Kino's Journey. It has so much variety in each episode about a topic to think about, and they're generally very well written.
Yeah, I think Mushishi does that as well. It's very philosophical at points, and that's kind of like a kind of fable almost. The Mushishi episodes where they kind of use very simple little things to tell very deep stories.
It's very much
that's one of my favorite elements to slice of life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we've had the most contrasting conversations. We had a kind of crazy talk about Urobuchi and then a very mellow talk about slice of life.
Yep.
With literally the complete opposite ends of the scale.
I feel kind of bad about slamming Urobuchi though.
You should never feel bad about slamming Urobuchi. Yep. He's a man that he deserves to be slammed.
He can take it.
Yeah, I mean, he slams his characters. It's only natural for him to get
against
slammed
a
a
wall.
little bit as well. Yeah.
Just like his wife.
Damn.
So we're going to go into our second game here, which is a classic game that I think I've played quite a few times on it, and it's pretty simple. It's basically I say an anime, and you guys have to guess the year that it aired, or at least started airing. And this is kind of, I'm going to do really old school stuff, so I'm going to do stuff from the 60s and 70s, so you guys, it's going to be pretty hard to...
Alright.
So, there's going to be 3, again, each of them are worth 1 point each. So the first one is Astro Boy, the original Astro Boy. I'll give you guys each a guess.
1967.
1965.
Oh, you guys are really close. It was 1963.
Oh wow!
It really was one of the first TV anime. So 1963 is a date. It's a very important date for anime. The next one is Space Battleship Yamato, the original, which again aired in the 60s or 70s.
1972.
Oh, you guys were so close again. 1974.
Oh my god.
You guys were I can't believe how close you guys are getting. The next one is the Castle of Cagliostro, which is Hayao Miyazaki's first directorial work, way before Studio Ghibli, but he did direct this movie.
I want to say 1979.
1976.
It was 1979. That's impressive. Well done.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. A lot of people forget about this movie because they think Hayao Miyazaki just means Studio Ghibli, and Studio Ghibli started in 1985, but he was doing work before that.
Lupin the Third holds a lot of nostalgia for me.
I've not actually watched the Castle of Cagliostro though.
It's really good. You should check it out. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So.
I've been meaning to for a while. I hear a lot of good things about it from friends.
How does it hold up to his
It
later
absolutely.
movies?
I think it's better than Nausicaa, if it says something. So, I mean, It's not quite on an epic scale, but it's sort of like it's this enjoyable romp, and it gets you really invested in the characters, and I feel like, it's something from. I'm trying to think of what it can compare to, because it's better than Nausicaa, not as good as Mononoke, somewhere like sort of in between that spectrum, but I can't compare it to like something like Kiki's Delivery Service. That's just weird. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that it's not just Alice in Wonderland all over again, because most of his movies are just Alice in Wonderland. In a different setting.
Totally.
That is
no,
true.
he is very repetitive. Hayao Miyazaki. He's either got Nature Wars or Alice in Wonderland. Those are the two movies that he does.
Yeah.
So.
It's basically ordinary person gets mixed up in kind of fantasy world. That's basically the formula for his movies. But I'll need to check out the Castle of Cagliostro if it isn't that.
It's very unique.
Because I've not watched any Lupin the Third things.
It's
although
nothing.
it's such
it's
a
nothing
recognizable
like that.
franchise.
It's like.
Is it a good place to start, or?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. I think that it's completely separated from the actual main series, so it's like its own side story thing, and it does. It makes the characters a little bit more on the. I think like a traditional like Indiana Jones kind of like hero spectrum, instead of something like in anti-hero like he sometimes is portrayed in the originals. So it's a good place to start.
It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll definitely watch it then, because I do really like Miyazaki as a director, but I do kind of dislike how he's very repetitive. But if he does make movies like this, then I'll definitely check it out.
This is a mix-up of his stuff, so it's definitely It stands out.
I have an interesting topic for us today. So recently I finished watching an anime, and I also did a review on it. It's called Gosenzo-sama Banbanzai, and I'm gonna be honest. I've never heard of this anime before I watched it, and I don't hear people talking about this one.
Yeah, you were the first person that I'd heard it from. I'd never heard of this at all.
Yeah,
it's one of the most unique works I've ever seen, honestly. Like it's really cool. So the whole story is told like the way a play would be told, like a theatrical Broadway style play. So that alone is like really unique because I haven't seen anime do that. Maybe kind of like Princess Tutu, but not as much. It's directed by Mamuro Oshii. Ghost in the Shell, Pat Labor, Jinro, etc. So he has a lot of good things behind his belt. And what's interesting about this one is it has some really cool coming of age elements as well. So like the main character, he's like 17. He wants to go out into the world, but at the same time he's scared of society, so he kind of just like bugs his parents all day. And then suddenly like this girl comes into his life and it changes everything, and everything becomes chaotic. And it's a little bit over the top because she claims to be his great granddaughter from the future who came in a time machine. So it's a little bit silly and like nonsensical, but it's coherent thematically, which is really cool. And it has a lot of really unique storytelling elements. For instance, like in the beginning of each episode, like the narrator tells you about a particular type of bird and how it breeds and raises its youth, like for instance penguins and cuckoos. And in some way, shape, or form, what the narrator tells you ties into the events of the plot and the characters themselves. So it's interesting in that respect as well. Like the backgrounds act like the backdrops in a play as well. So like we have things falling down, rising up, flopping around, spotlights, etc. There's also a lot of really meta elements. There's certain characters that like talk about certain plot devices that are used within the story. Like at one point, the protagonist points out that something that happened in the story was a Deus Ex Machina, and he's like, "Oh well, it can't be helped." So it's a little bit funny in that regard. It's a really unique work, and what I noticed about Oshii, which is kind of interesting, is that in like the 80s and the 70s, he had like this really abstract style, like Angel's Eggs.
Yeah.
This as well. And from what I hear, he did another film. It was, let me look it up really quick because I forgot the name.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
It's the Urusei Yatsura one.
Yeah,
I think it's Beautiful Dreamer.
Well, that's his that's really how he started his career as a kind of comedy director almost. Like he done a lot of really kind of these days he's known as like the sci-fi guy. Yeah. He's done a lot of sci-fi movies and kind of really kind of dark sci-fi movies, but he started his career in the 80s with like comedy stuff like Yatsura, whatever that's called. I can't remember. Can never remember the name of it, but
well, it is really a unique work, and I just recommend it for that alone. Plus, like thematically, it's coherent, despite the fact it's really silly and over the top. And it's just a generally fun watch because you don't really know what's gonna happen next. Because I don't think any of you have seen this, so.
No.
Like the topic.
No. I think it's also important to note that it was 1989 it was made, so like even this kind of style of writing wasn't that popular at the time, so it's even more respectable.
Yeah.
Like and I've personally yet to watch anything from Mamuro Oshii that I haven't really liked. I've watched a good chunk of his catalog, but I've yet to find even some of the lesser rated things like the Sky Crawlers or just Sky Crawlers or whatever it's called. I really like that, and most people didn't like that, so I'm sure I'll like this one.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask a question for you guys, because like, what anime that you have seen has like one of the most abstract and like different methods of storytelling compared to like the typical way an anime tells a story?
It would definitely be something by Mamuro Oshii.
Rebuild of Evangelion.
I think I've. Yeah, that's true. Mine would be anything Evangelion, and maybe to try and pick something from Oshii's catalog.
Rebuild of Evangelion is doing this strange 4-act structure thing that's like an ancient Japanese operatic performance kind of stuff. It's like the Jo-Ha-Kyu structure, but it's different from that. It's like an altered version that's reflecting back in an older style that has like 4 parts, and it's a really weird structure where it starts out with the character sort of beginning and meeting everyone, and then the big action happens in the middle, and then something that just catastrophically changes everything happens in the 3rd act. and then everybody just thinks about it in the fourth act, and that's so weird. That's such a weird structure, but that's what they're going for in Rebuild of Evangelion, and I'd say that's probably one of the most unique in anime that I know of. So
yeah. Have you guys seen the Skycrawlers from Mamuro Oshii?
I have.
I actually have.
It's such an interesting movie, and like I've hardly heard any positive words about it, and I actually really love it. It's like one of my favorite films.
I watched it with a friend, and he gave it glowing recommendation. Actually, so it's kind of.
Yeah,
I had a very positive experience watching Skycrawlers. It was slow, and I sort of understand why people would dislike it, but honestly.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I thought it was sort of. It's one of those things that I think that I would have to reevaluate now, looking back on it. But I had actually watched it on Netflix casually at the time, and I enjoyed it. So
all the kind of box arcs I bought on Blu-ray, I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. I didn't know it was Mamuro Oshii at the time, because it does look like a kind of.
It looks like
pretty standard adventure. Yeah.
The art style reminds me of Jinro, actually, with the way that they compose the faces and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, definitely. Once you get into it, it's like it goes from like, oh, this looks like a kind of classic adventure, into, whoa, this is really dark. Like, this is seriously, there's kind of some crazy stuff going on here, and I don't know, it's like such an interestingly told story, because it is so slow. I mean, to the point where it's like on purposely incredibly slow, to the point where you start thinking, wow, this is really slow. Just to build up that mystery, just to build up the like suspense, like to, I guess, give you time to like just think about what's going on. I don't know, I just think it's such an underappreciated movie.
A lot of people sort of don't realize, I mean, like, or a lot of people don't remember, but I mean, both Angel's Egg is really slow, and Ghost in the Shell is slower than you'd expect from the premise. I know that when I, had heard about it first from the Wachowskis, which is like The Matrix and stuff, I thought it was going to be action-packed, but it was cerebral and like thoughtful, and that was
dialogue
something
heavy
that I was really not expecting going into Ghost in the Shell first time through. Mamuro Oshii reminds me a lot of how Ridley Scott directs, actually, with the way that he attacked Blade Runner in particular. So his general style reminds.
Yeah, Blade Runner was one of the big influences for Ghost in the Shell, so that's where.
No kidding.
Mamuro Oshii noted it as one of the biggest. He basically said he wanted to make a Japanese Blade Runner.
I didn't actually know that, but that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you can easily pull that out and be like, yes, this reminds me of that. So yeah, that's cool.
I'd even say that he not only takes on the essence of Blade Runner, but surpasses Blade Runner in a lot of aspects.
Yeah, I would agree.
Especially, I think he's one of the only directors that can do long, like, pieces of very kind of detailed dialogue and not seem too boring and not seem too convoluted and still keep you engaged. I can't really think of that many other works that have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Like in Pat Labor, like a lot of it is dialogue, and it still manages to be engaging just because of like the direction of everything and what happens in the foreground and the background while the dialogue is actually happening. And just that really somber tone is unique, I'd say. It reminds me a lot of like works like Technolize, but it's a bit more dialogue focused, of course.
Yeah, I think the Ghost in the Shell, maybe the second Ghost in the Shell movie is his most dialogue heavy, but the Ghost in the Shell franchise is his most dialogue heavy piece out of all his work. I think maybe Jinro, but he didn't direct Jinro, he wrote Jinro, but I think that's very dialogue heavy, but that's more a drama than a kind of anything else, so it's kind of understandable. It's more a character-based drama than anything else.
Yeah.
That's going back to the kind of someone having more influence than they're credited for. You can see that he's added a lot of his directorial style into Jinro, although he was only a writer, I think, credited as a writer, I think.
Telepathically influenced everyone in the studio.
Yeah. I think if you had Mamuro Oshii in the studio while you were making something, it's going to turn out great.
It does feel extraordinarily directed by. It does feel like it's directed by him. That's so strange.
Yeah.
Like I would have assumed that it was just by like watching it for face value.
Yeah.
Face value. I wonder if a lot of people on the staff probably respected his previous work, so maybe they tried to like mimic his
definitely.
style. That could be easy possibility.
Well, that's interesting because Kenji Kamiyama, who done Standalone Complex, seasons 1 and 2, when he started it, he literally said, okay, this is me, I'm going to basically replicate Mamuro Oshii's style and make people think that Mamuro Oshii made this. He says, like, I'm going to just make this as similar to Oshii's style as possible. So, I mean, I don't know if that was the case with Jinro as well, but...
It could be.
I mean, it worked very well as well.
He's a good director to mimic, actually, so...
Yeah.
Have you guys seen any of his live-action stuff? Because he's got maybe 3 or 4, I think, live-action films.
I have not.
They look interesting.
Maybe. I mean, like, could you list off some names? Or...
They're not super popular, and I don't think they were super high budget either, but he got funding to do a bunch of live-action. Because originally, he was a live-action director before he was interested in anime, so... He has a love for that, and
that explains a lot, though. I feel like the more that you're influenced by cinema, especially the better that you're going to the better that's going to transfer into animation. A lot of people who do anime are really not familiar with like cinema in general, and I feel like Oshii is one of those directors.
Most people in the anime industry started off as just animators or background artists or
tweeners,
painters or something. Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think it's really interesting very important to look at the director of a work, because they can be the most creatively influential. But Mamuro Oshii was influenced a lot by cinema. He said especially like Polish cinema and stuff, which is that kind of, you can kind of see where he gets his kind of weird style.
Like Seventh Seal sort of stuff with that's actually really cool. Oh my god, I totally see the Seventh Seal parallels with like Angel's Egg. Oh my god, that's really cool.
Yeah, he personally is my favorite director. Like I really find his stuff interesting. I just think that he makes his stuff so multi-layered and so it has such depth. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I think like his works are particularly like dense when you watch through them, and it really requires multiple watches to get all of the nuances that he puts in there, like little tiny details that foreshadow the rest. Like in Pat Labor, the movie too, like when it showed the accident happening in the beginning, you could see the blimp that appears later on and kind of acts as a symbol, like in the background, but it's a little bit hidden, so you kind of have to look for it.
Yeah, he uses a lot of visual metaphors and visual symbolism, especially in Jinro. It's really, really important in Jinro. He uses wolves and stuff like that, and it's all throughout the movie. And especially Ghost in the Shell. Like I've watched Ghost in the Shell maybe 15 more times, and every time I watch it, I see something new, and watch it as a different movie. It's so well made. The third and final game, we're at 2-2 currently, 2 points each. And this is to seal it. This is the winning point for. And basically, I'm going to give you guys clues to an anime. As the clues build up, they're going to become more obvious. And first person to guess what anime it is wins the point, and therefore wins the podcast and gets the magnificent prize at the end. The first clue, and you guys can have one guess per clue. You probably won't have a guess for the first few, but okay. So the first one's it's a 90s anime. It was 1990s. It was a TV series, a science fiction TV series.
Ghost in the Shell?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's a TV series, not a movie.
Oh damn.
It's episodic.
Is it Cowboy Bebop?
Yes, bang on, Cowboy Bebop. I thought you were going to say like Trigun or something like that. That's pretty impressive. That means Michael wins the point and therefore wins the super big important prize.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Wow, I feel so special.
Yeah, but that's pretty. Let's recap on what we've talked about. We opened up with Urobuchi. We said some nice things about him. Then we had a conversation about Slice of Life anime, which was interesting, and then we had a talk about Mamuro Oshii. I think that's a pretty successful podcast, if you ask me.
Yep.
Sounds pretty cool.
This has been longer than other the episodes as well. I don't really have a specific outro or anything, so you guys can close the podcast.
I just want to say that thank you for inviting me, Lewis. This was a lot of fun to do, and it's interesting to be able to talk about everything on such a level, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
Yep, I'll say thanks again, Lewis, for having me on the podcast. I really love doing these because it's just a lot more fun than just like scripting a review and then just recording it, interacting with people and whatnot. It's just a good experience, and for all of the viewers out there, watch Oshii stuff, watch Aria. Don't watch anything by Gen Urobuchi. And have a good day.
No one's gonna listen. They're all gonna watch it.
That's the sad truth.
Unless you want to become jaded anime reviewers like us that don't like anything, then stay clear from his work.
We clearly don't
If you wanna
like
keep your
anything.
enjoyment intact.
That's why most of this was a positive podcast. So-
Yeah, that's it. I bet every comment in here will be, "Oh, you guys are elitists. You guys don't enjoy anime."
We're gonna get a lot of circle
Sure
jerk
thing.
comments.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I can see them already. I'm visualizing them already. I'm looking forward to it already. So thanks for coming on, guys. Thank you everyone at home for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.